What's up guys, hope you're having a good day. We're back with another breakdown video, this time for UFC Fight Night Augusto Sakai versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik, and hopefully you're going to be able to use the information in this video to make better betting decisions and hopefully earn some extra cash. And I'm hoping that you're able to earn a little bit of extra money from the last YouTube video we put out where we recommended a cheeky little bet on Carla Esparza to win. She came through for us in a big way at underdog odds. It was an absolute cakewalk for Carla. And we've got a few more bets like that in this video, so I'm hoping you can earn a little bit more cash by the time we're done with this one. And if you have been earning some extra money from my advice, if you like these breakdown videos, I would strongly suggest that you check out my website, MMABettingTips.com. I'll leave a link to it in the description below. If you value my advice, if you find it useful, if you like it, you'll find a lot more of it on my website. On my website, I put out breakdown videos for every single bet on a UFC card, as well as multiple prop bets, over-under bets, even money bets, live bets, a VIP chat room where you could talk about betting directly with me, and just other stuff that I think you're really going to enjoy. So check it out, man. I promise you, you won't be disappointed. You're going to like it. That's MMABettingTips.com. And if you'd like to join us for live betting this week in the live betting group, I do have a handful of spaces available. My live betting tips are extremely profitable. You'll know this if you keep up to date on my profit and loss videos. So we have a few spaces available for this weekend. Again, try it out. I think you're going to like it a lot. Highly profitable betting. Just go to Betting Tips, Live Betting Tips, and you could buy access for just this week's event, or you could buy a membership to get you access to every event. Check it out. And also, one last plug before we get into breaking down these fights. We also have an upcoming box break. Well, we've actually got several upcoming box breaks, but the next one scheduled for the night before UFC 263, Israel Adesanya versus Marvin Vettori, is now sold out. But we've got packs on sale for the one after that. We're doing something huge for the McGregor versus Poirier event, UFC 264. We've been having a lot of fun in the community with these box breaks where, you know, you buy packs, I rip them open, we see what we get. It's a lot of fun. I'm personally having a great time. I can't thank you guys enough who have been taking part in these box breaks. It's been tons and tons of fun, and I'm looking forward to doing, you know, at least one a month from now on. It's been a great success. I'm loving it. Like, literally, I have more fun doing this than like anything else I do at the moment. It's great. It like mixes all my passions together. You know, investing in collectibles, MMA, and gambling, right? It's like all three things combined. So it's a lot of fun. So if you'd like to buy a pack for UFC Topps Chrome 2019, which is a brilliant set for a couple of reasons. The first reason being it contains a lot of rookie cards from fighters that I believe are set up to have a pretty big future in the UFC. So it contains Islam Makhachev's rookie card. You can see the RC symbol here. The value on Makhachev's cards have been flying up like crazy. I've actually got one of Makhachev's rookie cards graded an SGC 9.5 myself, and it contains tons of other rookies from, you know, very highly rated UFC fighters like Peter Yan, Davison Figueiredo, Alexander Rakic, and younger fighters who, you know, maybe not are doing so well at the moment, but with them being so young, could have a really big future in the sport, like Macy Barber, Devontae Smith. I think that Hakeem Dawodu has his rookie card in this set as well. So it's a brilliant set. The packs are pretty cheap, $55 a pack. We've got 28 left. We started with 72, but this is a very popular set, so I know we sold a lot of packs so far. So 28 packs left. Another great thing about this set is that the autograph cards in this set, you can see we're guaranteed 2 autographs in a box. The autographs are actually signed on the card, which means the fighter physically held the card when he signed it. The modern trading cards, the fighters sign a series of stickers, and then they get sent off to Topps or Panini, and Topps or Panini put the sticker onto the actual card itself. I can show you an example of what I mean, actually, for any of you that are not familiar. Randy Costa actually tweeted a picture of himself signing a bunch of stickers for Panini. So the modern cards, what happens is Panini or Topps, whoever's producing the cards, will just send a sheet of stickers out to the fighter, and then the fighter will sign all the stickers and return them. You can see here. See how he's like signing all those stickers, and then they'll stick the sticker to the card. the Topps Chrome 2019 is a special set because the fighter actually signs the card, which makes it a lot more valuable. They're called on-card autograph cards. So if you're interested in trading cards, the price of these UFC trading cards has been flying up. So cheeky little investment, little gamble for $55. Might pull something great, who knows? This is a good set. I'm heavily invested in it myself. Okay, so with that, it's time to do a business deal, and then the plugs will be over. 5 minutes of plugs. Oh my god, 5 minutes of plugging. You already know what I'm going to say. If you would like me to do a prop bet live stream this week, all you need to do is hit the like button. If this video gets 200 likes, we will do a prop bet live stream on Saturday before these fights, where we dig for a prop bet on every single one of the matchups taking place this week. Do also want to remind you guys, though, if you don't want to wait for Saturday, I've already got a bunch of prop bets on my website, over 10 props there already. All you need to do, betting tips, prop bets, it'll take you to the prop bets page. You can find all the props there already, and I'll be adding more throughout the week. We've already got 10, but if you'd like me to share those bets with you in a live stream, hit the like button below. We'll get that going on Saturday. And obviously, we've been producing pretty good profits with these prop bets. I know they're very popular amongst you guys. You can see the profitability chart there. Decent little profit over the last 2 years or so. And there are some great props this weekend, so you know what to do. Hit the like button below. We'll get that live stream going. But enough of all that, time to get into the breakdowns. So the first fight that we're going to be talking about in this video is going to be Antonio Arroyo against Tom Breese. So we'll kick things off by taking a look at the odds on this one. So if we bring up the implied probability calculator, we can see that Tom Breese is currently a pretty big favourite at odds of 1.40, which is minus 250 for an implied probability of 71%. And if we take a look at the odds on Antonio Arroyo, he is currently around about an average of 3.0, which is plus 200 for an implied probability of 33%. If you've been watching my content for a long time, if you've been a member of my community for a long time, you'll know that every time I break down a fight involving Tom Breese, I pretty much say the same thing. I usually end up saying something along the lines of, this is a very easy fight for Tom Breese if he shows up and fights to his full potential, because he's an excellent grappler, extremely strong wrestler, high level ground game, and very, very good technical striking. He's also got a very, very big frame for middleweight. He's 6'3". Decent gas tank for middleweight as well. Tom Breese has all the attributes you'd want in a fighter, to be one of the highest level guys, one of the top guys in the division. Unfortunately, Tom Breese does suffer from crippling performance anxiety. He's talked about this and been quite open and honest about it publicly, and we really see it reflected in his performances where, sometimes Tom Breese shows up and looks like, future world champion material, and other times Tom Breese shows up and, to be perfectly honest with you, I hate to use this word because Tom Breese is 100 times the man I'll ever be. He's got much bigger balls than I'll ever have. I would never have the bravery, the courage to step into the octagon, and get into a fight to the death with another human being. But he does kind of quit in fights a lot. If you go back and watch Tom Breese's fights, particularly ones that he's lost against Omari Akhmedov and Brendan Allen, you'll see him put himself in positions kind of intentionally where he's giving the referee a really, how am I going to word this? But what he's basically doing is putting himself in a position where he's kind of hoping the referee stops the fight. In terms of, how it goes, right? A referee is supposed to step in and stop a matchup when he deems that a fighter is no longer intelligently defending himself. And, a couple of the ways the fighters will often get stopped is if they turtle up and they kind of just hold their hands up to protect them, but they don't move around. They just kind of accept being in a bad position as their opponent's hammering them with ground and pound. They're on the ground, they go belly down. Same thing, just keep their hands there. And they don't really move and try and fight through a bad position. You'll see Tom Breese do this very, very often. What's very weird about his fights against Brendan Allen and Omari Akhmedov was against Allen, he straight up quit, like waved the white flag, put himself in a position where the referee really had no choice but to stop the fight. He just didn't fight back. You could see he just didn't want to be in there. He quit. But what was really weird is he did this multiple times against Omari Akhmedov, but he kept snapping out of it. It's so strange. If you go back and watch the matchup, you'll see that multiple times in round 1, Tom Breese will kind of turtle up and allow Akhmedov to like chip away at him with his ground and pound and just not respond, which is basically, you know, what you do if you want the referee to stop the fight. But just at the second where you sense the referee is going to step in and stop it, Tom Breese kind of snaps himself out of that state of mind he's in and fights back a little bit, and so the referee stands off, which is why it went into the second round. But still, throughout that matchup, you can see Breese is battling with himself mentally in that matchup. I guess trying to, I don't know, just talk himself out of throwing the towel in mentally. I don't know, it's a weird situation. And of course, we're now a few minutes into this breakdown. We haven't even mentioned Antonio Araujo. And that's basically because if Tom Breese shows up and fights to his full potential here, he'll dominate Araujo. Like, Araujo doesn't have a chance. Like, if the best version of Breese shows up, he's going to smoke Araujo. There's no doubt about it. You know, Araujo is primarily a striker, but he's got a very kicks-based style of striking. Doesn't really have any boxing. He just loads up on big, powerful kicks. But the problem with Araujo is his gas tank is very bad. So the longer the fight goes, the less dangerous he becomes. And if you can make it out of round 1, he doesn't really have the gas in the tank or pop in the shots to hurt you. So he's very dangerous in round 1. He's got big explosive kicks. But after that, like, he's just not that dangerous, really. You know, the real issue with Araujo, the thing that's going to get him into a lot of trouble here with Breese, or could get him into a lot of trouble if Breese shows up, is that Araujo has terrible takedown defense and he's very weak off his back. And the more you make him grapple, the faster he gasses, which means the more you grapple, the less dangerous he becomes, which means the easier the fight gets for his opponent. So when you look at this fight, it really does come down to what version of Breese shows up. The best version of Breese shows up, I think he can outbox Araujo, pick him apart and dominate standing. If the best version of Breese shows up, he can take Araujo down, dominate him on the ground and probably submit him with how lower level ground game Araujo has got. So the odds are a little bit puzzling on this one because Araujo is obviously a big underdog, but it's difficult to bet him because we know that if the best version of Tom Breese shows up, he's going to get absolutely smoked. Like, there's no doubt about it. If the best version of both guys show up, Araujo's barely got a chance. But I don't really feel like the bookies are taking into account the chance that Breese may not show up here because they've got him as a big favourite. And I feel like when you're betting on a guy like Tom Breese, it's always 50-50 whether he's going to show up or not. You know, will he show up and be able to perform somewhere close to what we know he's capable of, or is he going to show up crippled by performance anxiety and significantly underperform like we've seen him do so many times in the past? It's very difficult to say. What I will say is this though, Araujo is so bad that even if Breese has an off night, he may still win. My issue with Breese is that his performance anxiety is not necessarily a performance anxiety like we see from Rose Namajunas or Donald Cerrone, where they're still trying to win, but they're just not quite capable of doing so. Tom Breese has a very self-destructive form of performance anxiety, perhaps similar to Kevin Holland's, where he really does things to make sure he loses. Like, you can see if Tom Breese doesn't want to fight, he really does everything within his power to gift a win to his opponent. So, I mean, the difference between these two guys in that respect is, for all of Araujo's weaknesses from a technical point of view, he's still game as hell. He's still going to be trying to win. We can't always say the same about Breese. So this is a very tricky fight for betting, personally. And I wouldn't touch this one myself, just because it's an easy fight for Breese from a stylistic point of view. But the risk to reward ratio in his odds is pretty poor, because you've got to bet a lot of money to get any kind of notable return. So it's an easy pass for me, but I hope you found that one useful. Hopefully, though, Breese does show up and perform to his full potential, because he seems like a really nice guy. He's still young at 29 years old, you know, still young enough to get his career back on track and have a successful UFC career. And he's a British fighter, man. I want Breese to do really well. He's very talented, very good grappler, very good striker. but we don't always get to see it. And you certainly wouldn't think this guy was a very good grappler based on, his performances against Akhmedov and Allen. But trust me, he is a very good grappler when he shows up, which is always 50-50. So hope you found that useful. Let's move on to the next one. We're now going to be talking about the fight between Dusko Todorovic and Gregory Rodrigues, and I am going to recommend a bet on Gregory Rodrigues here, and I want to say a big shout out to JB. Obviously JB is a member of my community, he's in my live betting group, he takes part in all my box breaks, and he's been one of my members for a while now, and he gave us some really, really important information here which helped me decide on a bet on Rodrigues. So if we start off and take a look at the odds on this one, we can see that Rodrigues is currently around about an average of 2.25, which is plus 125 for an implied probability of 44%. And if we take a look at the odds on Todorovic, we can see that he is currently around about a 1.70 favourite, which is minus 143 for an implied probability of 59%. So the bookies see this as roughly 60-40 in favour of Todorovic, and I disagree with them, to be honest. If we look at the odds movement on Rodrigues, we can see that his odds have been steadily declining since they were released. And I don't think he should be the underdog here. This is a risky bet. It's not like Rodrigues is a super strong position. I think Carla Esparza, who we had last week, was a very safe bet. Rodrigues is not as safe a bet as that, but there is still value here for the reasons I'll do my best to explain now. So Dusko Todorovic, 27 years old, 6'1" with a 74-inch reach, and Rodrigues, 29 years old, 6'3" with a 76-inch reach. So both guys roughly about the same size. Now Rodrigues is stepping up to take this fight on short notice. We can see that Todorovic was originally supposed to face Maki Bitolo, and Rodrigues is stepping up for this matchup on about 2 weeks' notice by the time the fight starts. I think it was announced on like May the 24th, something around there. However, and this is what I've got to thank JB about, because all the way through the research session for this fight, of course I live stream all my research for fights on my website and on Twitch. Links in the description below if you want to tail those. But throughout this research session, I was saying I would bet Rodrigues here if he were not taking the fight on 2 weeks' notice. Because from a stylistic point of view, there's things Rodrigues does pretty well, which I think can cause Dusko Todorovic trouble. But obviously, betting on a fight coming on 2 weeks' notice is really, really risky because we don't know what type of shape they're going to be in. But JB spotted the fantastic nugget of information that I missed because we were researching this fight pretty late at night and my brain wasn't firing properly. But it's not as big of a deal that Rodrigues is taking this fight on short notice because he did fight very recently against Josh Fremd. So you can see that he fought on the 21st of May, which was about just under 2 weeks ago, which means it's not really that big of a deal that he's taking this fight on 2 weeks' notice because he wouldn't really have had any downtime between his fight against Fremd and when he would have got the call up for this UFC fight. I mean, he probably would have cut weight for Fremd, so his weight is, I would guess, under control. It was a 25-minute title fight, which I'm sure he trained pretty hard for. And so it's not like he would have had time to blow up in weight and let his weight get out of control and then be coming on 2 weeks' notice having to do a brutal weight cut. I mean, he made weight for this title fight against Fremd and, should be in pretty good shape. He does train at Sanford MMA. His Instagram profile is, if we take a look, you can see there the Sanford MMA branding in the background. So obviously it's a huge positive that Rodrigues is training at Sanford MMA, one of the best MMA gyms in the world. There we can see him with Impa Kazangane, and with him only being 29 years old, I'm sure that he is improving at quite a rapid rate. There he is with the legend Chuck Liddell, and just an overall great gym to be training at. There we see him with Rafael Cordero, Randy Brown, Kelvin Gastelum train at King's MMA. What is hilarious, that does show you how small Gastelum is for a middleweight. Look at the size difference. Rodrigues is a middleweight and so is Gastelum, and Rodrigues the much bigger man there. There he is with Dariush and Marvin Vettori. But yeah, Rodrigues trains at Sanford MMA now, which is obviously a huge positive. But obviously skills are what pay the bills. Skills are the most important aspect of betting on MMA. So why do we feel Rodrigues is a good bet here against Todorovic? Well, Todorovic has a few weaknesses which will get him into trouble against almost everyone that he faces. The first weakness is that he relies on the ability to read his opponent and head movement in order to evade power strikes, which isn't always a bad thing. The problem is Todorovic isn't very good at it. So Todorovic uses a similar style of striking defense to what you see from guys like Anderson Silva or Alexander Rakic, where they stand in front of their opponent in kickboxing range and they try and read their opponent's movement so that when their opponent comes forward and attacks them, they then use their length to slip backward in a straight line and move their head back like this to evade whatever strike their opponent throws at them. But there are a couple of issues with that style of striking defense. The first issue being, if you don't read your opponent and they come forward and attack you, because in the case of Todorovic, your hands are down low and your chin is up high, you tend to get caught clean hard and you don't see it coming. The shots that knock you out, the shots that knock you down are the ones that you don't see coming. And Todorovic, for the most part, is pretty good at reading his opponent and using that head movement to slip his opponent's shot. But he's not always right. He doesn't always see the shot coming. He's not like an Anderson Silva or Alexander Rakic who still utilize that very risky style but are pretty good at it. Todorovic gets caught a lot. I would say 70% of the time, he does do a really good job of reading his opponent and slipping that power shot they're throwing at him. But that 30% of the time, he tends to get dinged bad and eat a big shot. And as a result of it, quite often wobbled or knocked out. He's very, very fragile in that respect. The second reason why this is, a flawed style of fighting for someone like Todorovic is that when he is reading his opponent, even if he reads them correctly and slips the initial attack they throw at him, if they follow through, he's quite often off balance and not ready to react to how much they follow through, how much distance they cover to get inside and land the power strike. So this is how he got himself in a lot of trouble against Punahele Soriano, because he was reading that initial attack from Soriano and slipping it with head movement, but when Soriano would follow through, he was just getting fucking dinged really, really bad. So his boxing defense is very bad, and he fights with a dangerous style where he tries to, read his opponent and use head movement, but he often gets it wrong. And a big issue with Todorovic as well is we always talk about it being important that a fighter is able to put his stamp on rounds through having big moments, landing big shots, hitting big takedowns, doing big damage. Todorovic is someone who doesn't react well to getting hit. In terms of, if you catch him clean, he overreacts. His head snaps back and he doesn't look good when he gets hit. And so when you go up against Todorovic, no matter how much volume work he does, volume strikes, clinch work, working with takedowns, it's quite easy to negate that. Because if you just crack him with one big shot, even if he's not hurt that bad, because he doesn't roll with the punches and wear the shots very well, it looks like this guy's constantly getting wobbled. His fight against Teddy Ash on the Contender Series is a really good example of this. He's actually quite lucky to have won that fight. If you go back and watch it in the cold light of day, he kind of chips away at Teddy Ash in the clinch for the entire duration of the matchup. But in the last 30 to 40 seconds of rounds 2 and 3, Ash decides to get his back off the cage, attacks Todorovic with boxing, and almost knocks Todorovic out at the end of the second and third round. So Todorovic is just a guy who is very, very susceptible to being knocked out. Boxing defense is very bad. Grappling's not great. Offensive wrestling's not great. And so Gregory Rodrigues is at least equal to Todorovic everywhere, I would say, which is why I like him as an underdog here. He is primarily a BJJ guy, which is one of the risk factors in this matchup. For me, Rodrigues is one of those fighters that annoyingly is quite happy to just fight off his back and fish for long shot submissions off his back, which I don't like because he quite often gives up position shooting for long shot submissions. But Todorovic's ground game's not great. Todorovic isn't great on the ground. Doesn't have the best offensive wrestling. From a technical point of view, Rodrigues is better than Todorovic on the ground, but of course it doesn't mean much if Rodrigues is going to accept being on the bottom and allow Todorovic to have a lot of top control. But striking is where I think Rodrigues can have a lot of success here, because he's a very good boxer. He's got big power in his hands, and he can fight long and cover distance very quickly, which is the exact kind of guy that's going to give Todorovic a problem. Rodrigues as an underdog is a pretty solid bet here. It's not a safe bet, it is a risky bet, but at underdog odds I think you're getting a pretty good risk to reward ratio, just because Rodrigues is very capable of knocking Todorovic out. He's capable of outstriking him. He's probably got the advantage on the ground as well. It's his UFC debut, so it's a little bit risky. He is on 2 weeks notice, but I do see this being a pretty close competitive fight. So I like Rodrigues as the underdog here. I think he is a pretty solid bet, and hopefully he comes through for us. We now will move on to the next one. Let's talk about the fight between Roman Dolidze and Laureano Staropoli. So I'm noticing a little bit of a trend. I would say I'm noticing a little bit of a trend with combat sports betting in general recently, and I absolutely love it because I'm making a lot of money off it. You know, this year has been pretty good for us. If you're a member of my community, we've done really well in 2021 on everything, right? Props, over unders, straight bets, live bets, everything's gone well this year. And a big part of the reason why it's going so well is I think it's getting easier and easier to make money on MMA. I think maybe as the sport grows, we're seeing a lot more people come into the sport and bet the sport that don't really understand betting, and they definitely don't understand MMA. Even a lot of these other predictions channels, you know, I hear some crazy shit these other YouTubers say, and I'm like, my God, I can just tell that number one, they haven't researched the fight, and number two, if they did, they don't know what they're actually looking at. For whatever reason, hype and win-loss records are having a massive influence on the odds, and I love it because it means we can dig up so many bets where there's just a lot of extra value. Carla Esparza last week was a great example. You know, Yan Xiaonan, because of the Chinese hype machine that the UFC are fucking ramming down everyone's throat, for some reason Carla Esparza was an underdog against a fighter who literally had no takedown defense and no ground game. So Esparza was a no-brainer. She was the underdog. She won easily. Yeah, we've had lots of bets like that this year. And this is another one for me. Roman Dolidze is just a very shitty, low-level fighter. He's just not very good. But what's really interesting is the MMA community, I don't know where they get their... I don't know where the MMA community get kind of like their herd mentality from, but there are certain fighters who are very, very, very bad that the MMA community thinks are good. And Roman Dolidze is one of them. He's just not a very good fighter. I don't have anything positive to say about Roman Dolidze. Just a super low-level guy. And Laureano Staropoli should absolutely wreck him on Saturday night. This is a cakewalk for Staropoli. Such an easy fight. If we look at the odds on this one, so I bet Staropoli last week when he was a 2.50 favourite. His odds have obviously declined a bit since then, but I still think he's a good bet here at these odds. So if we look at the odds on this one, he's currently around about a 2.25 favourite, which is plus 125 for an implied probability of 44%. And if we take a look at Roman Dolidze, he's currently around about a 1.67 favourite, which is minus 149 for an implied probability of 60%. I will use this as an opportunity just to share an interesting resource with you guys if you're interested. I know many people within my community watch these videos and don't necessarily always see the emails that I'm sending you guys. Obviously, we bet Staropoli about a week ago when his odds were up at like 2.50, 2.60. His odds have declined a lot now. If you're missing bets before the odds move, I highly recommend joining our Telegram group. So all you need to do is go to community, go down to mobile notifications, and then on here you'll find a series of instructions which will show you how to set up the Telegram channel so that you can get push alerts to your mobile phone anytime a new bet gets added to the site. So there are multiple databases on the website containing all kinds of different bets, like prop bets, straight bets, over-unders. As soon as a new bet gets added into the database, you will receive an automatic push alert to your mobile phone when those databases are updated if you join our group. So I highly recommend you get in on that so that you're always getting the best odds on these bets that I'm sharing with you guys. But yeah, Staropoli is just a great bet here. There are a couple of risk factors. There's absolutely a couple of risk factors with this one. The first one being Staropoli is stepping up to middleweight for this fight. So he usually fights at welterweight. You can see welterweight there. And this fight is going to be at middleweight. So Staropoli's moving up a weight class. It's the first time we're going to have seen him as a middleweight. And the other risk factor is that Staropoli is going to be taking this fight on short notice. We can see that Dolidze was originally scheduled to face Alicio De Chirico. But I'm not too worried about Staropoli stepping up on short notice here because Staropoli's Argentinian. He's got that Latin American gas tank. We know what Latin Americans are like. They never get tired. Staropoli's gas tank has looked very, very, very good in all of his UFC fights so far. All 4 of them have gone the distance, and he hasn't given us any reason to doubt his cardio. We know he can fight at a high pace for 3 rounds. Another reason why I don't care so much that Staropoli's taking this fight on short notice is that Dolidze's gas tank is absolutely terrible. After 1 round, this guy is usually breathing super heavy, and because his gas tank is so bad, he has to fight at a very low pace. So if you go back and watch any of Dolidze's last 4 fights, or 3 of his last 4 against Allen, Giles or Pasternak, you'll see that he basically doesn't do anything. Like, very rarely uses his grappling, very rarely throws strikes, because every time he does something and exerts energy, he gets more tired. So Dolidze is a little bit like Tyron Woodley, nowhere near as good as Tyron Woodley, but the same strategy in terms of Dolidze relies on putting his opponent into a defensive shell so that they won't attack him, so that he can take breaks. So what he'll do is load up on big power shots, attack his opponent with 1 single power shot, hoping then that they feel his power, respect his power, and they don't attack him. He likes to use his power as a deterrent, but if you don't respect that, if you don't play that game and you attack him in between his bursts of activity, this guy gasses extremely bad. And I don't think Staropoli is going to respect him because Dolidze is not that dangerous. Like, if you go back and watch his last 2 fights against Allen and Giles, he's just not that dangerous. Loads up on big, powerful single shots. Very, very sloppy after round 1. Doesn't set things up very well. And because he's a very low-volume striker, he's very easy to read because when he doesn't come forward, doesn't feint, doesn't really throw a particularly high volume, doesn't throw combos, he's quite easy to work out. He is also quite a low level on the ground. Very, very sloppy grappler. In fact, that might not be a fair thing to say. I would say Dolidze probably is a good grappler, but he doesn't have the gas tank to use it because his cardio is so bad. When we do see him on the ground, he looks very sluggish, very sloppy, gives up position a lot. I don't think that's going to matter too much here, though, because Staropoli's primarily a striker, and Staropoli's very difficult to take down, very difficult to hold down. Dolidze's got good offensive wrestling early while he's got gas in the tank, but after round 1, his offensive wrestling becomes so sloppy that I don't see him being able to take Staropoli down. This is a fucking great fight for Staropoli, to be honest with you. What I see happening here is Staropoli just fighting like he usually does. Nothing special. Staropoli's not great, not a particularly great grappler, not a particularly great striker, but he's tough as nails, he's game as hell, and he does fight at a decent pace. Staropoli's one of these guys that can throw a high volume of strikes for 15 minutes, and he's tough enough to hang in there and take a big shot if Dolidze lands one. And those are the kind of guys that are going to cause Dolidze trouble, because Staropoli is tough, scrappy, he's going to get in Dolidze's face, he's not going to allow Dolidze to take the breaks that Dolidze likes to take, and because of that, Staropoli is just going to outwork Dolidze and put a pace on him that he can't keep up with. Staropoli's a great bet here. At underdog odds, this is absolute madness, and it's just another example of where wiki capping is having a huge influence on the odds. And I see these other guys that are giving you bullshit advice on YouTube, man, telling you Dolidze's powerful, Dolidze's too big. Yeah, all this fucking nonsense, boys. All this nonsense. Let me tell you right now, wiki capping is all these guys do to come up with their rationale for bets. They just look at win-loss records, and that's how they decide what advice to give you. Okay, they look at a guy like Dolidze and they go, "Oh look, Dolidze, 10-1 or 8-1. Dolidze's got a good record. You know, he's only ever lost once. Let's look at Staropoli. Oh, 9-3. Oh, he's lost his last 2. This guy must suck. Yeah, Dolidze's going to beat him." That's literally the extent of the research they do. Trust me, Staropoli is a nightmare stylistic matchup for Dolidze. He should win very, very easily this weekend. At underdog odds, this is absolute madness. Madness. The bookies are mental, and the betting public haven't corrected the odds. Well, they have a little bit. He's down from like 2.60 to 2.25. But if I was capping this personally, I would have Staropoli as like a 1.50 minus 200 favourite. That's how confident I am in Staropoli. So hopefully he comes through for us this weekend. Of course, the risk factor is, he's taking the fight on short notice, right? He might be coming in bad shape. He might just need a payday, and he might significantly underperform. But if Staropoli turns up and shows anything like he shows up and looks anything like he has in the past, he's gonna dominate Dolidze. This won't be a contest. He'll fucking murk him. He'll knock Dolidze out bad, because Dolidze's boxing defense is real bad. He just doesn't see the shots coming. If Staropoli shows up like he has in the past, he'll knock Dolidze out. Trust me. So anyway, let's get into the next fight, which we're going to talk about in this video, which is going to be Walt Big Ticket Harris against Marcin Tybura. So we've just had a cheeky little bet on Rodrigues, just had a cheeky little bet on Staropoli. We've got another cheeky little bet on Marcin Tybura here. So if we look at the odds on this one, we can see that Marcin Tybura currently around about an average of 1.59, which is going to be minus 169 for an implied probability of 63%. And again, we bet him at better odds than this. So if you missed out on those odds, get over the mobile notifications and join the Telegram group to avoid missing out. If we take a look at the odds on Walt Harris, we can see that he is currently around about an average of 2.40, call it 2.40, which is going to be plus 140 for an implied probability of 42%. So it's a very, very good fight for Marcin Tybura. This real good stylistic matchup. I feel bad saying this because of all the issues that Harris has faced, outside of the octagon, but ultimately it's my job to research fights, make the best decision with the information we've got available, and win bets. And any information we've got available that can contribute to us making good betting decisions, we've got to use it. And I think based on Harris's last 2 performances, there are some real clear-cut signs that Harris has lost his way in mixed martial arts. And at 37 years old, it's very, very difficult to turn it around at that stage in a fighter's career. We know that heavyweights tend to peak later on in their careers. But at 37 years old, Father Time's not on Harris's side, right? Fair to say his best days are probably behind him. So we would expect Harris to decline from fight to fight now. It's unlikely Harris is going to look any better than he looked against Alexander Volkov and Alistair Overeem, right? It's unlikely. It can happen. At the end of the day, we're just trying to stay on the right side of trends, bet most likely outcomes, and the most likely outcome here is a 37-year-old fighter is not going to look better than a 36-year-old fighter, right? Just fact. Harris has lost his way, though, for a few reasons, right? So he's on his... I'm just trying to say this in a kind way. So Father Time's not on his side. He's getting old. He's also left American Top Team, which is one of the best gyms for mixed martial arts. A gym that, you're going to be improving at. Iron sharpens iron. And when you train at American Top Team, you train with some of the best fighters in the world on a daily basis. You also get access to some of the best coaches in the world, right? Some of the best tacticians, fighters that will help you put together a game plan and a strategy specifically tailored to beating your opponent, right? Or help you fine-tune weaknesses that your opponent may be well positioned to exploit. Harris has left American Top Team and he's now gone to train at Extreme Couture. We see Dan Ige here and we see Roman Dolidze on the far right who we've just spoken about. And unfortunately, there are good MMA gyms out there and there are bad MMA gyms out there. And if you train at a good one, you're going to improve at a good rate and you're going to, get the best coaches in your corner. There are also bad gyms out there. Bad gyms where when fighters go there to train, they quite often regress and decline and they don't improve. Extreme Couture is one of the worst gyms in MMA. I've been watching MMA for 20 years. I've been betting MMA for 15 years. I've been making money betting on MMA for like 10 years. And a trend I've noticed over those years is fighters that go to train at Extreme Couture do not get better. You will get the occasional unicorn like a Francis Ngannou, but generally speaking, it's a terrible gym to be at. So now we're starting to paint a bit of a picture where, Harris is getting older, hasn't looked good in his last couple of fights, and he's also now moved from one of the best gyms in MMA to one of the worst gyms, a gym which fighters just regress and decline when they go to train there. So it's tough when you look at the trajectory, right? Walt Harris's trajectory, he's getting older. He's had issues outside the cage. His performances haven't been great. That's a downward trajectory. Marcin Tybura, on the other hand, is in his prime for a heavyweight at 35 years old. He is improving from fight to fight. He's getting better. He's definitely still improving. He's tough as nails. He's reasonably well-rounded. Opposite trajectories. But from a stylistic point of view, this is a pretty good fight for Marcin Tybura. Because if you look at Walt Harris's last two fights, you'll see that his gas tank has just fallen off a cliff. Since he's left ATT, he just doesn't show up in very good shape anymore, to the point where he has looked a lot softer against Overeem and Volkov than usual. Doesn't look in good shape, and this really shows in his fights. If you go and watch his fights against Overeem and Volkov, you'll notice that 2 to 3 minutes into those matchups, he's breathing very, very heavily. And this puts Walt Harris in a difficult position because Harris is obviously an explosive striker, with legit one-shot knockout power in his hands. He's in a difficult position where his best chance of beating you is coming out hard early, blitzing you, throwing everything into his power strikes and looking to catch you with something big early, which is almost what he did to Overeem. The problem with that strategy is if you don't achieve your goal of knocking your opponent out early, you very, very likely adrenaline dump, gas out, and get dominated in the second and third round, which is basically what happened in the Overeem fight. If you try and manage your output and manage your cardio effectively and, just fight at a more sustainable pace over 15 minutes, because fundamentally your gas tank is bad, you're not going to be able to out-volume and outwork someone like Marcin Tybura. So Harris is stuck in this lose-lose situation where, I'm not saying it's a lose-lose situation because Harris may catch Tybura with something early and knock him out, but it's a lose-lose situation in the sense that if he goes hard in round one, trying to knock Tybura out and doesn't, he's going to be too gassed in the second and third to defend himself and he's going to take big damage and lose bad. And if he comes out trying to just chip away at Tybura and manage his gas tank over 15 minutes, he's not going to be that effective and he's probably going to lose a decision anyway. So it's a real tough spot for Harris to be in and a very, very difficult stylistic matchup for him. So if you're watching this if you're watching this breakdown, you could be, forgiven for thinking, well, hang on a minute, Tybura's chinny. We've seen him rock, drop, wobble, knocked out so many times in his career. Harris hits hard. How can you say Tybura is a good bet here when Harris is very dangerous? And how I would respond to that is, fighters are on a continual journey of self-improvement. To reach the highest level of anything in life, you've got to be very good at learning from your mistakes. And Marcin Tybura has improved his striking defense tremendously. I don't think that Tybura's chin was ever an issue. I think his defense was an issue. If you go back and look at his performances back in 2017 to 2019 when he was losing all these fights by knockout, you'll see that he was very stiff, very rigid, very flat-footed, fought with his hands down low, chin up high, and didn't read his opponent very well. This resulted in him getting caught cold and hard frequently, and the end result of that was him suffering quite a few knockout losses in a short space of time. But you can see a very clear shift here where, back in 2017, 2019, lots of red on the record. And then since 2019, lots of green. And this is very much reflected in his performances. Like I said, if you go back to 2017, 2019, he looked very bad defensively. But if you look at his more recent fights over the last 18 months to 2 years, or 18 months, to a year, he looks much better defensively. If you watch Tybura now, he's light on his feet. He uses a lot of head movement. He stays behind the high boxing guard. And what you'll also notice about Tybura is he doesn't get sucked into reckless exchanges. In the past, he would be more tempted to get into exchanges and quite often lose them because he would fight with his hands down low, chin up high. Now when his opponent comes and attacks him, he's much more likely to get behind a high boxing guard to defend himself and circle away or cover up until they burn themselves out. He's much better defensively than he used to be. And I think that's why this is such a difficult fight for Walt Harris, because Harris has got to catch Tybura with something big enough to put him away in round one, because if he doesn't put him away in round one, he's likely to be too tired to defend himself in the second and third. Tybura likes to start slow, focus on defending himself, let his opponents burn themselves out, and then he really picks the pace up in rounds 2 and 3 and puts it on them when they're too tired to defend his takedowns and too tired to hurt him with strikes. Like we saw it in the Greg Hardy fight. Greg Hardy was lighting Tybura up in round 1, but Tybura wore on him to the point where by the second round, Hardy's arms were too tired to hurt Tybura with his boxing, and that's where Tybura increased the pace, increased the intensity, increased the volume, and really broke Hardy with pressure and volume, which would be a perfect game plan to use against Walt Harris, and I'm sure that's the game plan that Tybura is going to employ, so we've seen him use it against Hardy, Rothwell, and Spivak now. It is also worth noting that Walt Harris's biggest weakness from a technical point of view is his takedown offense and ground game. He's very, very low level on the ground, very, very weak off his back, doesn't know how to defend himself when taken down, doesn't know how to work his way back up to his feet when he gets taken down. And so Tybura's offensive wrestling's not great, but he is persistent. And so when Harris starts to get tired, we know he's going to be too tired to defend the deep double leg shots that Tybura is going to be throwing at him, which opens the door for Tybura to take Harris down and dominate the fight on the ground. So it's a good stylistic matchup for Tybura. Obviously, there's going to be risk there for him in round 1, while Walt Harris is very dangerous. But like I say, some of that risk is negated by the fact that Tybura has exponentially improved his striking defense. And if he gets caught, he gets caught. That's gambling at the end of the day. If you're worried about the fighter you bet on getting knocked out in a cage fight to the death, you probably shouldn't be betting on cage fighting. So if you bet Tybura, you've got to understand and accept the risk that he may get knocked out early. Harris is a big dude. He hits hard. It is what it is. But from a stylistic point of view, from a risk to reward point of view, I think Tybura is a pretty good deal at his current odds. You're obviously not getting as good of a deal on him now that his odds have declined a little bit. But like I say, join the Telegram group and you'll get notifications whenever I post new bets to the site. Automatic notifications the website sends out when the databases for bets get updated. And yeah, man, hopefully Tybura comes through for us. And before we get into the main event, just have a little sippy sip of my drinky drink. Okay, guys, let's get into the main event. Jairzinho Rozenstruik against Augusto Sakai. And I think it's fair to say that this is one of the worst main events we've had in a while. I mean, we've had some pretty bad ones over the last sort of year. But this one is up there, man. This one is up there. Researching this fight was not fun, but we did research it, so I can kind of break this one down in a good amount of detail for you. So now let's talk about the fight between Augusto Sakai and Jairzinho Rozenstruik. We'll start off by taking a look at the odds on this one, so we can see that both guys are in that even money odds range. Sakai is the slight underdog odds are around 2.10, which is plus 110 for an implied probability of 48%. And if we take a look at the odds on Jairzinho Rozenstruik, we can see that he's currently around about an average of 1.77, which is minus 130 for an implied probability of 57%. So roughly a 50-50 risk to reward ratio bet in either guy. Rozenstruik the slight favourite. And to be honest with you, this is one of those matchups where both guys are even money. And usually I love to research fights like this because you guys know what I always say. Whenever you've got two fighters in that even money odds range, if you can just lean 60-40 one way or the other, you can find a really strong position to put your money. And that's why we do so well betting these fights in the even money odds range. But you've just got to accept that from time to time, you are going to run into fights where you research fights in that even money odds range, and you've got to accept, it is a 50-50 fight. I can't call it either way. We've got to accept the odds are roughly where they should be. And I think that's one of those matchups here. It's a difficult fight to call because both guys have got strengths and weaknesses that the other's quite well positioned to exploit. So, for example, Augusto Sakai has got a good gas tank for a heavyweight. He's quite busy. He pushes a decent pace. Not particularly effective at anything, but he hustles. Comes forward, gets in your face, hustles. He's always working. Rozenstruik's the complete opposite. He's got painfully low output. Very, very low volume striker. And he's one of these guys that literally goes into every matchup trying to knock his opponent out. And you know what they say, if you try to win a fight by knockout, you often end up losing a decision. Rozenstruik's very guilty of this. He does headhunt. And so Rozenstruik's one of these guys that his volume and his output is so low that if he doesn't knock his opponent out, he's almost definitely going to lose a decision. Like, we look at his record, he did nothing against Gan for 25 minutes. Did nothing in round 1 against Junior Dos Santos, and was 4 seconds away from losing a decision against Alistair Overeem. If we look at the stats, we know that the average number of strikes for a heavyweight landed per round is like 20. And we can see that in round 1, Rozenstruik only landed 8 strikes. Round 2, 6. Round 3, 13. Round 4, 10. And round 5, he landed 5 strikes. So well below that average of 20 strikes per round. And it's not just one fight. It's a similar story if we look at the Junior Dos Santos fight, right? 18 in round 1, 24 in round 2, but that was mainly in the flurry where he went out and finished JDS. You look at the Overeem fight. Overeem fight shows this as well. Remember, the average number of strikes landed per round is 20. He had 5 in round 1, 19 in 2, 14 in the third, 30 in 4, 21 in 5. But picking the pace up way too late in the fight when he was already down 3 rounds was not good enough. Just a very, very low volume striker. So with Sakai being a high volume fighter, Rozenstruik low volume, you're in a situation where if Rozenstruik can't knock Sakai out, Sakai's almost definitely going to win a decision. The problem is, Sakai is one of these heavyweights that's quite slow, quite sluggish, not the best boxing defense. And we know Rozenstruik is very, very fast. When he does open up and let his hands go, he's got devastating knockout power. His problem is he doesn't let his hands go enough, but when he does let his hands go, he's a bit of a nightmare. Because of how slow and easy to hit Sakai is, when Rozenstruik does open up, he's likely to hurt Sakai very bad. But if he doesn't put Sakai away, because he doesn't open up enough, like I say, Sakai is probably going to win a decision. Another thing to factor in here is the fact that Rozenstruik is an extremely low level on the ground. We're talking white belt level. Now, I know Sakai isn't a good grappler either. We saw him get dominated on the ground by Alistair Overeem. But Rozenstruik's ground game is at such a low level that it doesn't matter that Sakai's not that great either. If Sakai does choose to come into this fight with a grappling heavy game plan, take Rozenstruik down, beat him up on the ground, Sakai's still going to dominate. So this fight is an easy pass for me because Sakai's slow and bad defensively, which makes him very, very susceptible to the knockout. But Sakai's volume is much higher than Rozenstruik's, and just like we were saying, Sakai is vulnerable and fragile. Well, he's not fragile standing, but he's vulnerable standing in terms of defense. Well, Rozenstruik's vulnerable on the ground because his takedown defense is very, very bad. And he's like a white belt on the ground. So both guys have got huge weaknesses that the other can exploit, which means I don't see any strong position for us to put our cash on this one. So this one is an easy pass from me. So I hope you found that useful, guys. Hope you found that useful. That is going to be it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Remember, hit the like button below if you'd like a prop bet live stream this week. I'm only asking for 200 likes. If we reach 200 likes, we'll get that prop live stream going on Saturday. And again, check out my website, MMABettingTips.com. Like I say, a lot of people watch these videos, and I think a lot of you would really benefit from being a part of that community. Just give it a little try. I don't think you're going to be disappointed. So anyway, thank you for watching. Take care. Nice one, everyone. And I'll see you in the next stream, hopefully on Saturday night, where we get those prop bets going. Have a great week, guys. Bye.